Hey, this is Ben bringing you the grand finals of the Store Championship at Game Empire in Pasadena. On the left side, we have Timmy Wong playing Jinteki Personal Evolution, and on the right side, we have John Delisandri playing Geist, and I have with us special guest commentator Timmy Wong.
Hello again, everyone.
And this was after a very long battle fighting through Top 8 and Swiss, and I think this isn't the first time you've played John.
No. So this is the first game of the grand finals. I'm in the winner's bracket, so I've not lost yet. In the first round of Top 8, John and I already played. We played our other matchups, so I ran against his corp, and I managed to defeat his Industrial Genomics deck after it crushed me at the last Store Champ. I think you have videos of that on your channel already. So John is... well, he's like an amazing player. So he didn't let that deter him, beat every single other person, called back up, beat Jerry in the losers finals. And here we are again, first game of the grand finals. And I have to beat John at least once. And I'm not feeling too great about that because he did sweep me at the last Tour Champ.
And we have... John got to the grand finals with a Geist deck. And, like, that's the coolest thing to me. You know, it wasn't long ago that Geist was panned as, like, one of the most hated or weak runners in the game. And especially about the time of his release, he was considered a very, very weak runner widely. So it's really exciting that we have kind of like the old versus new, cult of the old versus cult of the new going on in this fight. Or this game, I should say.
A little bit. But Geist has gotten a lot of really good tools. Now I don't think anyone would say that he's really weak.
I think Tech Trader's been his only tool recently.
Technical writer from Data and Destiny.
Oh, and technical writer, and I guess that you're right there. And now with Councilman and Political Operative coming out, those are probably going to slot right into old Geist, especially to deal with that Caprice.
Political Operative is a trash ability, which is great for him. Councilman is not actually; it's a triggered ability. Okay. All right. So I have one ice, which I'll put over HQ because he's a criminal and he has a cat siphon, and I'll just take $2. So the most scary card from a criminal deck is a count siphon because shell games don't work if I can't trigger my traps. So my strategy is going to be to take it really slow, click for as many credits as I can get away with, so that I can keep money even through siphons.
Well, really, you find clicking for credits as to be one of your more stable means of economy?
Well, it's the one form of economy that the runner can't possibly do anything about. So when your deck is filled with like traps and agendas and stuff, you make do with what you have to do to get money.
Oh, those two Tech Traders are going to be so good for John. Especially with the Street Peddler out, trashing that doesn't. Oh, and the Film Critic. That's like the worst thing you could have seen.
Yet another Film Critic. Yeah, he's going to make plenty of money, but like I said in the last game, I don't care too much about his money, so it should be okay. But he does get my profiteering, even hosts it so he doesn't take a net damage. That's too bad. I was hoping to land that profiteering so that I could be really safe against siphons for a long time.
Were you just hoping he wasn't gonna risk running this early, or again, normally you try and throw something out to see if he's gonna run or if he's gonna wait to see if it's advanced. So I'm actually a little bit surprised. I see you have a snare in your hand. Actually, that's really why I'm surprised, because you could have just dumped a snare and see if he checked it, which I feel like is pretty likely that he's gonna do.
It's not clear. He could have easily not checked it, and then I just have a useless snare on the table forever. If I keep the snare in hand, it guards my hand. I think playing out the agenda is fine because, like, he gets a point. It sucks, but it's only 1 point. And if he doesn't check it, then I get a whole bunch of money, and I don't need to worry about money for the rest of the game, most likely.
Kind of opened yourself up to the siphon, though. Back up to siphon, same old siphon nonsense. And I guess at that point, you score profiteering. You don't really care that he's stealing the money, and again, you don't really care about him stealing the money. So I guess once you hit the profiteering, money is set. You don't really care about it anymore, either way.
Often, yeah. The 15 credits does run out, surprisingly often.
Eventually.
But it's a big boost, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. The problem here, Geist might actually be like the worst matchup for my deck because
He can trash so many things whenever he wants. Like this
Yeah.
fall guy is just an instant
he can
card.
just
Like
build
whenever he
up.
needs.
Yeah. Like all his trash cost cards on the board are just like extra cards in his hand. And John's shown by running the Profiteering that he's going to play a little more aggressive, right? He ran it right away.
Right.
And I have 6 cards in my hand, so I kind of have to make a move. So I decided to put a card down and advance it. So I want to see if John is willing to check advanced cards, since Jerry wasn't. In the last game, when I played against Jerry, he didn't check any of my advanced cards, so I had to use that to my advantage. Here I'm scoping out John's strategy for this game.
Do you find yourself doing that a lot? Like, I know you're really good friends with John and Jerry, so you know we kind of know how they're gonna play. Is this, yeah, I guess it depends on a day-to-day basis. But is this like that's generally your strategy piloting a deck like this? Is you like seeing what it takes for the runner to run, or what their habits are most likely going to be?
I think it's something you have to do playing this sort of deck. You don't necessarily have to do it like in quite such an obvious manner, but you have to figure out like what the runner is doing, what they're thinking, right? Okay, so John deliberates for a long time and then finally decides to run it first click, and it is an overrider. So
That's
that was
gonna be really solid for you.
the best result for me, yeah. So I get to land 2 brain damage, and he's down to 3 card max hand size. But that would be a more crippling blow against almost any other runner. As Geist, he has, again, this like virtual hand size because he can pop his cards to draw pop his trash effects to draw cards on my turn and make it harder for me to kill him.
Right, but like I mean, like right now or early game, I feel like there's certain windows, even still, like with that ability, there's a lot of times where he isn't going to have a lot to trash and really draw up. I mean, here with the Fall Guys, obviously that's something he can trash anytime, but the breakers and things like that, he can't just elect to trash the breakers to fill up his hand. Like there are certain windows here that you can observe or at least try and pin out. And I guess I'm just saying that, like, a lot of the times, I actually ran into it at this tournament where some players didn't realize that you can't use the Cloud Breakers when you're not in a run. So those cards don't do anything to help save you from damage.
Right. But John is smart, so he'll understand that he should save his other cards for critical times, right? So he's not going to pop his Peddlers without a good reason. He's going to save them as extra hit points. Okay, so now John's shown that he's willing to run basically everything I put down. So that also kind of cramps my style. I can't get away with just putting things out and hoping to build up a critical mass of stuff to trap the runner. Anything I put down, I think John will just run it right away. So it's hard for me to get like agendas out of my hand when they're just going to give him points. They don't even do damage because he has Film Critic.
But yeah, I feel like it lets you bait your traps a little bit more. If you know he's going to run, at least you have a pattern, right?
Absolutely.
So there's something that you can try and like formulate together, especially when you have the neural EMPs. So like I believe that's your second one that you have in your hand already. So the 2 neurals gives you a lot of options to kind of figure out how your plan's going to be. Plus you have the leeway there, depending on what your cards you draw, of course.
Yeah, so if I draw traps, I can land them pretty reliably if John keeps up the strategy. But the problem is it's hard to kill him even so because of Geist's ability. And yeah, he decides to run again. I put down the snare because I thought he would run. But like the snare isn't going to kill him. It's like a minor favorable exchange for me, basically. Because he ran it first click, he'll just draw 3 cards, and I haven't really gotten anywhere. I didn't deny him any like critically important cards or anything.
Well, I don't know. The legwork seems like it's really strong against your deck. I mean,
it's very risky if I keep snares in my hand, though.
Well, sure, that's fair. But even like you're less likely to die out of HQ accesses than you are in the remotes. I guess that's why I kind of like it as a card in this.
I don't actually agree. I think legworking against P is a very easy way to die.
Even with a Film Critic out?
Film Critic definitely helps, but still, like, as personal evolution, you often just keep your snares in hand because just wait for them to legwork, then they die. All right, so I'm getting down Jackson. I need to look for more traps, basically, and get rid of agendas that I can't play.
John already ran into them all.
Yeah, and I want to cycle more traps back in. The fact that he's also checking R&D when it's pretty safe also hurts because he can trash my traps before I get to draw them. Yeah, it's here I'm kind of, again, I need to figure out how I'm planning to win. Since it looks like John's going to run everything, I just need to get as many ambushes as I can and make them as impactful as I can.
And I mean, this is almost a stark contrast to how Jerry was, like, actually it is entirely a stark contrast to how Jerry was running the Haley deck. And either way, like, it's so difficult against a shell game deck, especially when you have Mushin power. Or you can get those advancement counters on the cards, so the advancement tokens so quickly and out of nowhere. You're threatening, especially now that you have landed brain damage, Mushin a Junebug or install advanced advantage Junebug, and you already have like a really dangerous trap. And I mean, like here, John can take advantage, as you mentioned, hitting R&D, getting rid of some of those traps. The Ronin is a really great thing for him to hit. But you have this interaction, right? Like you need to force the runner to do something, and I guess this way, well, I guess who's to say which one's more effective?
Yeah, but it really shows that there are multiple ways to approach running against a shell game deck. It's bad to be too passive. It's also bad to be too aggressive. You have to really do it smart, take calculated risks, and that's where the fun of the game is. I feel forcing both players kind of out of their comfort zone. It's always an exciting time.
What did you shovel back here with that Jackson?
Agendas I had in hand, and
I think a snare, maybe?
Maybe an ambush of some kind, yeah. All I want to draw here are more ambushes, basically. Yet again, I'm finding it hard to draw into my Mushin notions this game, which is pretty annoying.
But you have all the money in the world. You can just install advance for days.
Yes, but Mushin lets me advance it 3 times, or even 4 times, and that's better than twice. Yeah, often the click compression is just as valuable as saving credits.
Oh, definitely, yeah. Well, that's why Mushin's good in the first place, right? It's like the click compression, even without the advancement counters, that you're doing 4 actions for 2.
Right. John discards his gun.
The secret tech trying to put up against Caprice. And I bet that's probably going to get slotted out directly for political operative. I would have to imagine.
I think that was his plan, yeah.
But that probably is what saves his matchup against HB. I mean, Caprice and Geist, when you're killing your breakers, you need to have something. You know, Caprice just says, nah, just a 33% chance, nah, I don't feel like you getting in.
Yeah.
Something like this where you cycle your deck so much, you really can't have that.
Yeah, the fact that Geist has to trash his breakers to get in means that upgrades are really important for him to deal with. Mm-hmm. So here I finally drawn a second piece of ice. I only have 7 in the deck, so it's...
7? You have 7 pieces of ice? Damn.
Yeah, so often I'm digging for like a second ice to play. I'm... Like, my hand is clogged with like archive memories and like things I don't want to play because John will run them. So I'm just playing it really slow. Again, I want to have a big credit buffer so that Siphon can't possibly deny me, can't possibly make it safe for him to run. Mm-hmm. It can't break my back. And now I have 30 credits, so that's a pretty good pool.
Yeah. And I think we're starting to see what John's going for here with the New Angeles and Film Critic. Looks like he's trying to keep that in play for as long as possible to kind of keep his, so he can siphon away your money without worrying about tags.
All right, so I put down a card, John checks it predictably, it's Genetics Pavilion, he pays 5. Okay.
It's just killing money.
Yeah, basically I had a full hand, so I might as well play it out and make him trash it. And he's just churning, drawing cards.
More like, technical writers online.
Face down ice is so powerful as P, like because people never want to run into Komi or Cortex Lock. All right, here goes another advance. Let's see if John runs it this time. He checks my archives to see how many of my ambushes are gone already to make a more calculated guess on what this is. He has 3 cards in hand, so if he draws up to 4, he won't die from Junebug. Then he can draw 2 more and pop some cards, so he's probably safe.
Yeah. I mean, I think he draws a card and checks it. I mean, you gotta respect the Junebug, so you can't run it with 3, right?
Right.
But, I mean, at the same time, that could just be a 3 or 2 advanced overrider. Now he's down to 1 hand size, and that neural EMP kill is likely. Even as Geist, I mean, if you play 1 EMP, you know he needs to pop 1 of the fall guys. So at least you have some way to eat the fall guys. But it also makes your Ronin kills way easier.
So he does decide to run with only 3 cards? Wow.
With only 3, yeah. Just checking it and hitting the other overrider.
Okay.
So now we're down to 1 hand size out of Geist.
Yeah. Well, I think he definitely should have drawn a card first in case it was Junebug. But I guess maybe he saw like 2 Junebugs in my archive, so he was pretty sure it wasn't that. Anyway, yeah. John keeps it up, checks everything, gets hit with 2 more brain damage. He's on 4 brain damage and 1 hand size. And that's a terrible position.
That's really bad position.
But still, I don't have the kill. Normally, I would have the kill against any runner because I could just double neural EMP. He takes my Philotic. That always sucks.
Mm-hmm.
But as Geist, he can just draw cards during my turn. So
he only has the 2 fall guys, so he only has up to 3 hand size right now.
But that's enough. I can only have 3 neural EMPs.
Oh, yeah, but he is showing he's going to check everything, so I guess the Ronin play is most likely off the table. Even, I guess you could play the EMP and then cycle it back with the Jackson, too, if you really wanted to, but that's really slow and pretty unreliable.
Yeah, that would be relying on me drawing the EMPs before he draws any trash cost card, right?
Right.
So that's not a winning strategy. Yeah. So still, I'm kind of back in the same spot. I've gone through so many of my ambushes already, and he can see that. So I think if I put anything down, he's still going to run it.
Well, you said you had the archive memories, so you could get an archive memories something, install advance, and that can be an overrider, or it could be an agenda. So I think that's just when you start using the archived, right? Like, that's what it's there for. I know, well, not really, but it's there for motion.
It's there for motion.
If you're seeing the runner run everything, you need to be able to switch it up. And archived is such a good card. It gives you so much flexibility in situations just like this, where you might have game plan one thing and you can switch it up on the fly and maybe archive for something else depending on the habits that you're identifying.
Yeah, archived has always been a great card. As the game goes on, it's any card that you've already played, right? Mm-hmm. So that's great flexibility. Yeah, John is trooping on with 1 hand size, as you have to do in the grand finals, I suppose. It's tough for him because anytime he draws a card, he needs to play it or lose it. And me, I'm trying to deal with my 5-card hand size. It's full of cards that I don't really want to play. And John's on 3 points, so 2 agendas could get him the game here. It's certainly not over yet, even though I've landed 4 brain damage.
Well, I mean, even here, though, it's if you get another trap in your hand, and it could be literally anything. At this point, I feel like you could archive memories, either an overrider or a Junebug or even a Ronin. Again, depending on what ambush you draw in your hand, and then install advance. And you're reasonably threatening death for John if he runs it, or, if you actually install advance to Ronin, then I feel like you have an out there. That's going to make your life easier to try and actually secure this kill.
Yeah, pulling off some kind of move like that is pretty much my out, but it's pretty clunky to do something like that, right? It takes a bunch of time and setup, and it can be disrupted.
And just not worth trying to pull it up right now?
Well, we'll see. I'm putting down 2 cards at once this time, so see if John wants to run it, because it's pretty risky, right? He has to draw 2 cards before running in case it's a snare, and then if he takes damage, it's hard for him to run the other card. Mm-hmm. But John smartly just levy AR lab accesses here. So
4 free cards for scratch.
Yeah, that recycles his deck, but most importantly, it gives him 5-card hand side, a 5-card hand just for this turn. So that was a really great move by him. He puts down another fall guy. Now you have 3 free draws, and he runs my my card. It's an agenda. He gets it. Yeah, I was hoping he would not run here.
Oh, that in the Street Peddler and the Fall Guy, that's going to be a really nice safety net for John to have.
Yeah, so now he could actually have 5 cards in his hand on my turn.
Yeah.
He does have to trash a bunch of cards. Back down to 1.
I think he only had 2 more to actually get rid of there. I think a lot of what he did, he played the Fall Guy, played the Street Peddler, so yeah, he only had a couple cards there. So making the most out of that levy.
Yeah.
Or as much
he
as possible.
He probably didn't have to host that. I guess he didn't want to get the Peddler discarded, so he decided to host the agenda instead of taking damage.
Yeah, I don't think he's really afraid of you having any effects when you know, no mid-season, basically, is what I'm saying. You don't really have to worry about that in this matchup.
Oh, you never know.
I hope not. If you could have that much influence, that's scary. You got some overriders in there, just a little mid-season, some Scorch, just cover all your bases.
If they ever print a Jinteki ID with more than 15 influence, that'll be good times.
So you're trying to figure out what to do here, it looks like. Yeah. I'm not sure. That might be an agenda that you're thinking about trying to score.
It's just annoying. I think at this point I have 3 Neural EMPs in my hand. So normally when I have that against a runner with 1 card hand size, I would just win. But here I have to like keep them in my hand for like forever, and they're not doing anything. Because if I play them, they're not going to do much. All right, so I actually put down 2 agendas because I figured it was really unlikely he would run both. And even though he did the levy move, it turned out he didn't run both. So yeah. But he got the one that I wanted more because I don't really need money from profiteering. I take it anyway. Why not? The bad pup isn't doing anything for him.
You never have to worry about money again.
But if I'd gotten the false lead, that would have really helped my kill potential. Then I can deny him like 2 card draws, basically. So then I think that would have helped my ability to land the kill a lot. Now, it's not great.
Yeah, it did get a lot harder after that levy. Just John having more options, and you called it before, John, exactly what you predicted, not using those instant trashes when he has them available, and that is his best route here.
Right, okay. So here I do the move that you wanted me to do. I archive memories for Cerebral Overrider.
Install advance, there it is.
And install and advance. Okay. So 1 advanced card is normally not scary at all from Jinteki, but when you're on 4 brain damage, it's pretty scary.
Right.
Because the 5th brain damage means he can't keep any cards in his hand, which means he would, in order not to die to Neural EMP, he would have to start popping one of his trash effects every turn to have a card in his hand. So that would not be sustainable for very long.
Well, now it looks like he's got 5 turns of it.
That's true. But yeah, now the dynamic changes, right?
Of course.
Yeah, like before when he ran the advanced cards, he didn't know if I had an ambush even. But this time he knows for sure I have a Cerebral Overrider. So does he really want to run this card? Probably not, right?
No,
like the chance that it's an Overrider is really high. But then I know that he knows that, so why would I put an Overrider down? Okay, so John's like drawing more cards, getting more this like virtual hand size basically with the Street Peddler. He puts down his same old thing, I think on his 2nd click, so he has 2 more clicks. Is that right?
I believe that was his 2nd click, yeah.
Or maybe he spent more clicks here. I don't know. It's looking like he's not going to run this card anyway.
He wants to. I think he's considering.
But every other time he's ran it like 1st click because that's the safest thing. All right, so he didn't run it. He just played cards. He assumed it was Overrider. So I'm going to advance it more and up the stakes.
That Ronin.
Yeah. Now if it's Ronin, he needs to start going up to 3 cards. So finally he's in a really tough spot because if he runs an Overrider, that's 4 advance, he'll die right away.
Yep.
And, well, not necessarily if he gets 4 cards in hand, but he would die at the end of the turn.
Sure, he would still have to pop a bunch of his stuff just to hit the card and then die a couple clicks later.
But if it's not a Ronin, he would have to keep 3 cards in hand at all times, which is also not sustainable. So he really has to figure out what I'm doing here.
And this is like exactly the spot. Like now you're kind of in the spot back in the driver's seat here. You have a little bit more control even with all of John's virtual hand size.
Well, I don't really have control. He has control. He needs to just guess wrong for me to get there. All right, he pedals for peddler.
But you can fake control. Pretend you have control. Now, which one's really more important?
Yeah. I never feel like I'm in control playing Personal Evolution. It's just hope the runner screws up. But you definitely have more control than you would think.
Yeah.
Like setting up these tough situations and like helping them to guess wrong.
Mm-hmm.
All right. John's trying to figure out what to do. It's understandable. It's a pretty weird spot.
Yeah, and at this point, I feel like John's just trying to figure out what he has to do. I honestly think he should be trying to. Oh no, he can't even like run R&D.
No, he does a smart thing here. He same old things legwork to get info on my hand, because if he hits the overrider for my hand, then he knows I put something else down.
And that puts him up to 6. That global food, right? Because he has 3, 4, 5, 6.
He decides not to host with Film Critic, takes the damage.
Only has a card, so
yeah.
Oh, he's
so he popped the first
snare though.
peddler to get an extra card in his hand. Popped the same old thing to get an extra card in his hand, so he has 3, so he doesn't die to snare.
And looking for the overrider here, trying to kill, rule out what that card is.
But he doesn't hit it. He just hits an agenda and 2 EMPs. So that makes it more likely from his point of view that that card is the overrider.
Right. Like that, and that's a good read. I feel like, the heads up play to get the legwork gets him a ton of information here.
Yeah.
So
I was expecting it, but it's still a really good move.
Yeah. So you kind of have that.
Mm-hmm. He has enough breakers that he can get through anything I res. It's just a special offer that's not going to do anything this game, so I'm going to leave it unres. At least I have so much money that he can't possibly siphon me, so I have that going for me.
Yeah.
Isn't
the... I guess it doesn't really matter, but the new Angela should get trashed here. Theoretically.
Yes, that's correct.
Not that it's going to really play an effect, but you left John with a really tough decision here. I mean, like, he can keep running into HQ, but he knows 2 of them are the EMP, but there's still 2 more cards he hasn't seen?
It's true.
I guess, I don't know, like, what would you do in this scenario?
He goes R&D. I think that's pretty smart. He just got an agenda from HQ, so now let's start getting them off R&D. Like, the legwork didn't find the overrider, so that card is probably the overrider.
Mm-hmm. Well, sure, that not running that makes sense, but then do you keep, like, you know what I mean? Like, should he keep checking your hand then? Because there's still 2 cards, and he did hit a 3-point agenda.
The thing is, he has been checking, and he's mostly been hitting EMPs.
Right.
And now he knows I have at least 2. Mm-hmm. So it's tough for HQ accesses to get anything else.
Yeah, I guess especially since you're telling us you have 3, so it only leaves the 1 other card, which John's assuming is the overrider.
No, he's assuming it's some other card.
Right, excuse me.
Yeah. But he does run HQ again to check. And finds an EMP. All right, and that's the end of his turn. He's like, hope I don't die to Ronin, but I don't have the kill. It's not a Ronin.
So just play, so now, like, in his mind, in John's mind, that is for sure the overrider.
Very likely.
He is never going to run that for the rest of the game.
Not unless he wants to die.
Right, and that's a fairly good read. Everything that he's seen is indicating that. And John's better off trying to go for the win. Although, honestly, even now, it's always a Hail Mary option, right? I mean, like, if he sees something else that John can't stand up against, then he could just pop all of his trash stuff and run, and then just try and do a bunch of other things. You know what I mean? Like, it gives him the temporary cards.
The thing is, the food puts him at 6 points, which is, he needs any agenda and he wins.
Right.
So, like, it's actually looking like he's going to call back into this game with hand size of 1, which is quite
it's a feat.
Disheartening for me.
yeah, that's a feat. Let's say it. But a lot of that, I think, comes up with just comes from him playing Geist. I mean, like, I think a lot of that is the ID choice in the game that is leading to that kind of ending, right? I mean, like you said it yourself, we saw it. You have 3 EMPs in your hand. So against 90%, actually, like 99% of the runners, you have to kill, especially when they only have one card.
Mm-hmm. Right, here I'm trying to figure out what to do, and
motioning more stuff.
Motion more stuff. That's
give John
that's how my deck wins.
Options.
Yep.
So that's most likely the one card he didn't see then. I'm sure is what's going through his head.
Well, I did draw a card with my first click, so I drew a card that he hasn't seen.
Okay.
And yeah, I need to keep putting him into these tough spots. So is this card the Ronin? From its perspective, it's pretty likely, right? Mm-hmm. We've gone through so many ambushes, and a Ronin would be really bad for him, so I would probably go for it. All right, so he spends
some clicks to draw up, probably anticipating just having a safety net to check that remote.
He goes for R&D. He wants to avoid dying to snare, tries to hit an agenda, misses. If he gets an agenda, that's game over for me.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, like, this is it, right? I mean, like, he's thinking one of those cards has to be a Ronin. It's got to be at this point.
Yeah.
So, which is fair. We haven't seen a Ronin in a really long time, so... but either of these could easily end in death. And like,
well, he knows the first card is not a Ronin.
Sure.
Because I would have killed him last turn. But here, like, he can either check the new card, or he can keep, like, start popping his trash effects to keep a 3-card hand size. Or he can assume that I'm doing a bluff and have another ambush or something. But if it's a Ronin or an agenda, he wants to go get it right now.
Right.
Yeah, so this is this is a moment right here. And he decides to run it. Last click. Access? Yes. And it's the overrider.
Bluffing out the global food for 2 turns. That was on the board for so long, and that was the game.
Just 2 turns or 3 turns. Felt like forever. Yeah, that was one of my favorite games. Archive memories for the overrider and then putting down the food was like the only way to get the food on the table. And then because John assumed that would be the overrider, I could put it down, get him to run it because it could be a Ronin. So
and with that, you earn your trophy, even though you had to buy getting the trophy at the last possible store champ.
Whew. It was a good ending, getting back at John after he beat me so many times. Yeah, those were some great games. I'm glad P pulled through for me.
Yeah, and that was a crazy close game too. Like,
so close.
John's at 6 points, 1 card in hand, and you're just flying by the seat of your pants, trying not to let John see that last agenda.
Yeah, I knew I had to do something. Like, if I didn't make a move, he could just keep checking R&D and win eventually.
And again, thank you very much for joining me these last couple games.
Yeah, it's been really fun. Let's do it again sometime. Signing off, guys. Take care.